But the main thing that I really want to get to that broke today in college football, which is a big thing. So for those who don't know, something in college football, I think it was University of Washington, some of their players, basically went against the NCAA because they were basically making all their money off of them, and they're not getting any support. That's what they call the name, image, and likeness. Okay, because as you all know, you technically can't pay players to go to your school.
Mm-hmm.
Technically, we do it all the time, but it's forbidden. Then they decided to, and then they were also saying that you can't transfer, or if you do transfer, you have to sit out a year. Whereas, but then their argument was, well, coaches can literally just take another job every
Mm-hmm.
year if they wanted to. So, and there was no penalty. They just get millions more dollars by taking another job. So basically, those two things went to court. The court was like, yeah, this is unfair. So therefore, the NCAA just had to just sit there and take it. Well, now it's full board transfer portal. People are transferring all the time. Then plus because of COVID, people got an extra year. So you're having like 25-year-olds in seventh year
Mm-hmm.
of college playing. Because it's technically the way the transfer rule works is you transfer to one school, you can have one transfer, but then if you transfer again, you have to take the penalty. But most of the time, people just like no, and then the NCAA like fine. So people just transfer willy nilly. But you can basically technically transfer 2 times without any penalty, and that's if you transfer the first time, or you are a graduate. And a lot of people are still graduates, so they can
Mm-hmm.
just transfer whenever they want. And then there's name, image, and likeness. Now, technically, the schools can't pay the players, so they have all their boosters, which typically the boosters end up paying for the players anyway. Like that's
Right.
who got the players there to begin with. So it's not like the schools are really forking out the money because they have to keep up with other budgets than just paying this one guy $2 million. So UNLV story just came out today. UNLV starting quarterback, and they are 3-0. They're and if you don't know how the playoffs work, they let at least one Power Five get into the playoffs, which could really, even though you're probably not going to win, at least it lets everyone in except for like those top 6 teams every year. The way they did it, so 12-team playoff now, and they at least let a group, what they call the group of five, get in. UNLV is 3-0. They are right there. They just beat Kansas, which is a Big 12 team, at Kansas, so it was a big win to them. And this is their starting quarterback. Well, their starting quarterback comes out today and basically says, "Hey, after NIL and stuff didn't work out that I was promised, didn't end up getting paid. So therefore, I'm going to use my one red shirt that I have and transfer because you have a medical red shirt, and then sometimes you can get an actual red shirt because
Mm-hmm.
you have up to 4 games to play, and then once you play 4 games, you can't. That your red shirt's done. That's your year. That's it. Okay. Unless you get a medical red shirt, like some gruesome injury happened to where you tear your ACL, and then you can go to the NCAA and say, "Hey, uh, it's not my fault that it's just injuries happen," type of thing. And they typically they go back and forth on that, but that's not what this is about. So
Right.
basically, he got three weeks in, and according, and I will kind of read through here. And yes, college players now have agents.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Uh, and I think these agents, although they are licensed, this is the Wild West right now. This thing needs regulation yesterday, and this is why. For this type of thing, because this could
Yeah.
be this could turn into an avalanche real quick of just a bunch of messed up stuff. But let's get into some quotes here. But basically, this is Matthew Sluka is the UNLV starting quarterback, and he basically redshirted and said, "I'm leaving the school because agent Marcus Cromartie told ESPN that UNLV didn't come through on a verbal offer of $100,000 from an assistant coach. The quarterback's father, Bob Sluka, told ESPN that head coach Barry Odom later said in a phone conversation that the offer wasn't valid because it didn't come from him, but rather from offensive coordinator Brennan Marion, who declined comment to ESPN. Um, and then a statement that Sluka's representative made financial demands upon the university and its NIL collective in order to continue playing. So basically, he was
Mm-hmm.
like, "Hey, so again, this is coming down to a bunch of he said she said stuff, but it's
Mm-hmm.
still something to bring out."
All about the
UNLV athletic.
Benjamins.
What?
All about the Benjamins.
Oh yeah, UNLV athletics interpreted these demands as a violation of the NCAA pay-for-play rules, as well as Nevada state law. UNLV does not engage in such activity, nor does it respond to implied threats. UNLV has honored all previous agreed upon scholarships for Matthew Sluka. UNLV has conducted its due diligence and will continue to operate its programs within the framework of NCAA rules and regulations, as well as Nevada state laws. UNLV's collective did pay Sluka one $3,000 fee for an engagement he had made this summer, according to Rob Sine, who runs Blueprint Sports, a company that manages the collective. Okay, because basically every
We don't pay him, but we paid him for this one thing.
well, here's the thing: he transferred from Holy Cross, and most of these guys go to these schools, and there's also could be tampering involved, which is a whole different other can of worms. In this story here, basically what happened, and again, it's a bunch of he said, she said. So it assistant coach said like, "Hey, we'll pay you $100,000." Cool. Then they get there, and maybe there was agreed upon as far as the coach just says 3,000. Well, they paid them 3,000. It's again a collective. You're going to hear this word a lot when it comes to college sports because the schools can't pay them. For Louisville, it's a 502 collective. They'll have like cool names or whatever, and people donate to them through boosters and stuff like that. For example, I'm going to use U of L again. There's a big booster in U of L that says just for men's basketball, okay, that says that hey, I will match. Here's the timetable. Whatever it is, if we raise up to $2 million, I will also match, and it goes right to men's basketball. And U of L people came out $10 here, $10 there, whatever, raised the $2 million, and then he matches. There was already $4 million to pay these kids, which we all
Right.
said they should be paid, obviously. But here's where the muddy waters happen.
Mm-hmm.
Is we really don't know, no one else was in the, is to quote Hamilton, no one else was in the room when it happened. So this is a bunch of he said, she said, but that's not the point. The
Yeah.
point is this could snowball into something really bad, and the NCAA can't really step in and do anything because if they step in and do anything, the Supreme Court's going to be, or the court, they're going to go to the court, and the court's going to be like, no, you got to do it.
Right.
Because that happens every time now. Is as soon as they take them to court, the NCAA is effed.
Yeah.
But just I don't know if you were able to read through this story a little bit. Just
I
kind
didn't
of
have a chance to read because I was watching WNBA. But they have to, UNLV has to say we never, but
oh yeah,
every college and university has. But they legally they have to. They're not going to perjure themselves. So, but I find it funny. NIL is tricky, and it's tricky for a lot of things. I do think that these players, especially you have colleges and universities that are making so much money off of these players, and the players, like some of them, other than getting their college paid for, were like living in shitty apartments, eating ramen, not like basically poor kids.
right.
So I'm glad that players are finally getting their due diligence. They're making so much money for the university that they're able to make some money for themselves at all. We do still have some issues in it with like international players. They cannot get any NIL deals because then they're considered to be working and they're not allowed to be working while they're on a student visa. So that's even like Camila Cardoso talked about how like she made zero money at all, wasn't able to get any deals until she actually graduated and then was part of the Chicago Sky. But there is where we're seeing it, and we're seeing it a little bit more on the men's side than the women's side, but people transferring and leaving schools and kind of just going flip-flopping and going back and forth, and where I think that it's hurting the development of these players. I think it's better you choose a school, and unless like it's really not working out, that you're just not playing in the right position, your coach fucking sucks, this or that, as the cops drive by my house. For you to really learn, you need to be in the same space, and you need to be working on skill sets, and you're not really working on skill sets if you're hopping from place to place. So I think that this is really going to affect these group of players that, because NIL didn't exist when we were in college,
No.
but now it does. So it's going to be interesting to see the snowball effect. And I think we're seeing it a little bit more on the men's side than the women. The women tend to kind of stay at their colleges and make their money,
Yeah.
especially too because women's sports don't get paid as much at the professional level, that they're like, well, I can kind of get paid a little bit more while I'm in college.
And it helps and it hurts when it comes to NIL, because here's the pro of it is that with this, and I understand what he's thinking. He's like, he literally went to UNLV. He completes like 44% of his passes. It's not like he's going to be an NFL player. So
Right.
you're trying to make as much as you can before you go into the real world, and talk about, like, the whole joke about, the enterprise commercial and stuff like that, like, working in
Mhm.
insurance and blah blah blah. So if you can make $100,000 before you go into working,
Right.
a $60,000 job, yeah, I want to do that. But the thing is because it's not pay for play, like, you can't, there's no contracts involved, they're not paid
Right.
employees, so therefore you can only really, it's not like
Verbal
the
agreements.
right verbal agreements. You can't really, and I don't know the ins and outs of it, but just from
And a lot of
out,
it's shady, under the table kind of stuff that, like, you can't really sue anyone for,
no.
because then you get in trouble and they get in trouble.
Right. But it's a lose-lose situation if you
Yeah.
sue that person. So the only thing he can do, because it happened last year, there was a player out of Florida. His name's Jaden Rashada, who he was a, he was a 4-star, 5-star quarterback. They thought he was going to go to Miami. Then he goes to Florida because Florida gave him the bag. Then he gets to Florida, realizes that was false. So then he goes to Arizona State before he even starts his freshman year. So, but the thing is like, the player can't sue, and the school can't sue, because then they're gonna just go a bag of worms. And by the time the lawsuit and all that stuff gets over, then, like you were talking about, the development of the kid's done, and so the kid's screwed up, and then also the school screwed up. So it's just kind of like, all right, we just have to agree and then hope that everyone honors it.
Right.
Um, and again, there's no, and also too, you have some agents for these kids that are like, oh, well, you're 3-0 now. I mean, you're hot. And they're only going to give you like 3,000. We don't even know if you're going to get another 100, or because this other guy said he can give you that, but he can't give you that. Might as well just use your name, go off on a high note, and then go to a school next year and really go to like an Auburn or something like that could use you, and then get paid. Is that the right philosophy? Yeah, to get him paid, but the agent's just trying to make a commission.
Right.
So is he looking out best for the kid? No, agents never are. I mean,
And
there
like,
might be. I've watched Jerry Maguire.
yeah, there's a few agents out there. Like, I don't want to like disparage like all agents. There's a few out there that like legitimately care about their clients and are doing stuff in the best interest. But there's far too many, and especially like, ooh, NIL passed, we can do this, and it kind of becomes a little predatory.
Yeah.
And I don't want to use that word, but in a sense, there's probably several people who aren't actual agents that became agents for the purpose of exploiting NIL money.
Right. Yeah. So, yeah, the NCAA fully supports college athletes profiting from the NIL. But unfortunately, there is little oversight or accountability in the NIL space, and far too often promises made to student athletes are broken. NCAA Senior Vice President from External Affairs Tim Buckley said in the statement, "Positive change are underway at the NCAA to deliver more benefits to student athletes, but without clear legal authority granted by the courts or by Congress. The NCAA conferences and schools have limited authority to regulate third parties involved in NIL transactions, hence the collectives. Like,
Mm-hmm.
they can regulate schools because that's who gets punished. They
Right.
can't regulate. Now, that being said, from the NCAA, who would tell a school they violated because they paid for this kid's cheeseburger. Like, really, this is what we're at on that. But that's a again, it's a whole different ball game. It's kind of a theme here, but just they need for the first time in a long time, I'm like, all right, we need some regulation because this can get bad and hurt everyone involved. And
Yeah.
then you could lose viewers because people are like, I don't even. It's hard enough for me to keep up with who's on Louisville's team. I mean, literally, our basketball team have the only returner. Now, granted, it's a new coach, so and all that, but like the only returning player is a walk-on. It's literally 13 new dudes.
And I know on the women's side you miss Haley Van Lith.
Yeah. Hey, she made a choice, and she got a bronze medal. She was going to do it with a Louisville jersey either way. So, but yeah, but I mean, Louisville gets there, and then plus it's like you have these collectives, so then the coaches have to go to the collectives, and then it's like it can't go to all sports, which is the problem to begin with. It's like how if you're paying for these players, well, football and men's basketball get more revenue, so they're going to get the first crack at getting these players are going to get the most money, but then you have other sports that still bring in revenue, but not that. So it's just a whole. That's just a whole
It's a
nother.
whole can of worms.
Yeah, but it's just a. This doesn't surprise me, but it still is crazy at the same time that it's happening. But that's all I got for that.